Hello, welcome to International Television. I'm Valerie Thompson. Well, unless you've literally been living under a rock for about a month or so, you've probably heard the song of American Idol fame, Pants on the Ground. And like millions of Americans, you were probably swayed by its creativity and timely message. Well, that song opened the door wide open for us to say, what about kids with their pants hanging on the ground, or sagging pants as it's been called? Our guest, local author and business owner, Gene Stubbson, is here to offer his take on the topic with the book that he wrote called Pants Hanging Down. Thank you for joining us, Gene.
You're welcome.
Just get us started here. Where did this come from? Let's just start at the beginning. Where did this come from?
Well, the take on this originally began with me just seeing a lot of kids walking around with their pants hanging down. I thought it was very unusual because as a trendy type of guy myself, I was always accustomed to having people, dress well and prepare for where they're going.
Okay.
And the more I saw these kids walking around, and the fact that I was interacting with a whole lot of them that were doing it, kind of made me want to say something.
Where'd that interaction come from?
Well,
like, how are you in connection with, I guess, the youth culture?
Well, initially, as a younger person, I designed clothing. That was the first thing that I did.
Ah.
As a clothing designer.
Okay.
So my understanding of how clothing was to be worn initially came from that. I mean, you obviously design for the people, and after having directed and co-directed probably 40 fashion shows, I kind of have a feel for how you're supposed to look. Besides, I kind of like to be a little spiffy if at all possible.
Okay.
But the other part of that came from the 22 years of working in the community, working with some of these kids.
Okay.
And so with me doing that and then getting to see these kids transform from the youth to showing an image or portraying an image that a lot of people really deemed as negative, I really started to pay attention to this pants hanging down. And that's what really kind of began the whole process.
Okay, so you're in the community, a local business. What business is it again?
It's a barbershop.
A barbershop by the name of a very
Stubblefields
historic.
Barbershop. Yeah.
I was going to say a historic barbershop here in Houston in Fifth Ward, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so just being in that environment, that gave you that access to that culture, because boys, they love to get their haircuts. I know the young men that I run into, they love to get their haircuts. So they let you have that access to that type of individual. And it sounded like that your fashion sense is what really brought that to your attention. One of my favorite parts about reading your book, and it's a great book, by the way, was just how your book really depicts the pants hanging down as really a state of mind, and it kind of transcends a fashion statement more into like a societal consciousness, a way of thinking. Did you get that was that intended, or did you, as you write and were writing the book, that just kind of like, was that an aha moment for you? Like, this is a state of mind, just not a way of dress.
I think it kind of started as me just feeling out in my own head what that stood for, what it represented. And what I did is I really immediately moved it away from it being a fashion thing to going deeper than it being fashion. Because, I mean, if it was just straight fashion, then we could look at it like we look at anything else. But there was the associations, the ties that seemed to always be present with this particular type of wear.
Okay, give me some examples of what those associations are, because that's very interesting.
What normally happens, and from talking to a lot of people, and even some of the ones who really did it, there was a jailhouse connection. There's always been a gang type affiliation. There's always been a really going against the grain type of association with that particular look. One reason being, this particular look is not acceptable anywhere. Though a lot of people do it, it's not acceptable because anybody from the youth who understand to the elder people say it really looks bad.
Right. So you think it's a rebellion thing?
Well, I think I won't stop and say it's a rebellion thing, because there were a lot of different styles that were rebellion type styles of clothing, from the bell bottoms and the afros.
Okay, the
and
60s, right?
the 60s
70s?
and 70s, all of those. But the difference between that and this is that it did not have the negative connotation that's associated with this particular look.
Because of the prison association that goes along with it. Where is that where it really started? Because I've heard several stories about what this whole thing means. I honestly have to believe that it's not for the female persuasion. It has to be something. It has to be something that is just not a fashion trend, like you said, because it's just so much derogatory statements, that comments that go with it. So
Yeah. Well, it tends to have its origination or its originality in the prison system.
okay.
That is what people know of mostly.
Okay.
For the people that I've talked to, and I've talked to everyone from police officers to those who have been in prison for long periods of times, to the people who just are just doing it. You get answers that range from it started in prison to it was a gang type style of clothing, and a style of wear. And what unfortunately is the link between all of this is that none of it was ever, it always depicted something negative. And that's the bad part. That's the association that really spurred me on, particularly when I would see some youth that I knew from young kids grow up and end up, showing themselves in that way. And then even my objective view end up having that association go through my own head.
Okay, so it seems like it's just a lot of negative coming back.
A lot of negative.
Coming back from this style of dress. Well, since it is so prevalent in our society now, I've seen 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds barely just walking, children wearing saggy pants, or their parents have literally pulled their pants down so that they can sag, which is crazy, really, really crazy to me. But what I really want to explore as well is, what does that say about us as far as what our expectations are for our kids, for the youth? But what does it say about the kids? What does it say about us? What does it say about society? What's your take on it? And what take did you have on it in the book?
My direction has always been to inform and to, I would like to say educate, but to enlighten. To give people that aha moment that you mentioned a little earlier. The idea is that we need to let people know what it is they're showing. You can say what you want, but first impressions are really all we really have. If the impression that a person gets from you is something absolutely negative based on how you appear, they don't sometimes even take the chance to open up that book.
Right.
And say.
But do you consider this discriminatory in this particular setting? I guess for us to say that it is something negative just because we don't, think
don't
that,
like it?
Yeah, just because we don't like it. Because I draw parallels between the 60s and the 70s with the long hair and the bell bottoms and platform shoes, and there were a lot of people who didn't like that. But at the same time, I don't think, to go back to what you said, I don't think that they would say it was derogatory. Is that?
Well, they wouldn't. Even then it was considered rebellious against the system. This, unfortunately, has more of a tie to the urban type, street type society.
Okay, so minorities, probably blacks and Mexicans, maybe?
That, but we can't leave out anyone else.
Okay.
Everyone else.
It's become a fashion.
It's become a fashion that I don't believe that the youth who depict this particular look understand what they're doing. Because even when I've actually talked to them, because I didn't go all throughout these hundreds of interviews and never talk to the people who did it.
Right.
The common term, or the common answer, I should say, for why they did it was always just what we do.
Just what we do.